good afternoon, good day to you all. Thank you for joining us. We will begin shortly, just a few more minutes, waiting for other participants to join, and we will begin at 5 minutes past 2. Thank you.
Give me the strength, the wisdom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the part of the globe that you are joining us from. Thank you for making time and joining in on this conversation today. We are just starting right now, and I would love to start by pointing everyone to the fact that we will be running the session in both French and English, and we do have virtual interpretation services for the session. To access those services, please find the icon at the bottom of your screen, the icon indicated interpretation, and then click on it, select a language of your choice, and mute the original language. That said, thank you again for joining. And we will move on to the basic webinar norms. Yeah, you can see them on the screen, basic webinar norms. Further to this, I will point us to the session's agenda, which is very brief, straight to the point, brief, and will allow for us to be able to engage. Please note that throughout the session, you can always ask questions and put in comments at any point. And you can do this by typing in the Q&A box and raising your hand if you so wish, and I will unmute you, or someone else will unmute you, and you can have your time to speak. We will have lengthy plenary session where you can contribute based on what you have to say about the topic and also based on what our panelists will have said. Having said that, my name is Caroline Kyoko. I am a scholar, a lawyer, a feminist activist, and part researcher, and I work for the Heinrich Böll Foundation, East Africa, on gender and democracy. And today I will be moderating this session on African feminist advocacy. And our focus through the session will be on breaking barriers through advocating for reprioritization, or speaking on reprioritization and refunding of feminist capacity strengthening programs. I am sure that we are all aware that around the world, feminist, age and gender notwithstanding, are confronting power and advocating for inclusion and equity, reimagining politics of liberation, and generally challenging patriarchy in all forms and spaces. The contribution that fuels this work by for those feminists and by other feminists comes in very many forms and different spaces. But most of all, it comes from donors, regional and international entities, and member states. member states. It comes in form of, financial, political resources, technical capacity, facilitation and provision for platforms to be able to highlight and amplify feminist agenda. Now, it goes without saying that in the last number of years, we have had a shift in prioritization of funding from feminist strengthening capacity programs to other issues that are also very necessary. And worst of all, the COVID pandemic further shifted resources away from feminist strengthening programs and definitely generally on feminist advocacy. And this is what we will be highlighting in today's session and show how much a significant effect it has had on feminist advocacy and generally on inclusion in all spheres, political, economic, social, and any other. And this will be very particular, mostly for Global South and, if I may, the African continent. So just as an introduction to the host for the day, the Advocacy Accelerator is our host for the session. Advocacy Accelerator is a bilingual Pan-African entity that works to strengthen advocacy capacity, alignment, and impact on the Anglophone and Francophone West Central Africa. They do this by providing online and in-person platforms for advocates and their networks to share evidence, approaches, expertise, among others. And all this is towards capacity strengthening. The Advocacy Accelerator exists to connect and link advocates to information, expertise, and support for advocacy capacity strengthening programs, which can be achieved, which they achieve through three critical players. That is the advocates, technical assistant providers, and donors. The Advocacy Accelerator really just plays a matchmaker role, identifying and connecting advocacy, communication experts, and even donors, directing them to the people in need and support. Now, the session today centrally speaks to the work of the Advocacy Accelerator among the space that feminists have found themselves in. I would love to shine the spotlight to the four phenomenal young women with whom I will be having a conversation or conversations based on how they go for today. And I'll ask them to introduce themselves. And we will start by, you can introduce yourself by telling us about yourself and also by telling us about your work on challenging patriarchal advocacy work. So randomly, any of the panelists who is ready, let's just have your introduction.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Caroline. My name is Marin Khalif. I am the Somalia Area Coordinator for Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa. I'm a strong young feminist who's living in Somalia, specifically Mogadishu. I'm relentless, committed to empowering women and committed to promoting women's welfare locally and nationally, and promoting women and nationally, and act as a role model to other aspiring women in the community. I provide mentoring, guidance to other women, and advocate for the rights agenda. So that's me, and probably I'll give chance to the rest to introduce themselves, and I will continue to talk as we continue. So nice to meet you all. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Marianne. We'll move on to the next one.
Now let me take the floor. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Barike Gudeta. I am from Ethiopia, currently based in Addis, the capital city of Ethiopia. I'm a graduate of law, and also currently I'm studying human rights law at the same university where I studied law. And also I have been working in different organizations that directly or indirectly support and empower women. I have worked as a case manager, legal aid provider, and teacher. So I have been in different places, and I'm so excited. Currently, I'm working as a dialogue track officer. I'm engaged in the dialogue part of it, and at the same time, I do a number of campaigns, social media campaigns whenever there are issues that has to do with women, girls. So I'm very passionate about girls' empowerment, women, inclusion, rule of law, justice. So this is me, and yeah, thank you very much. I'm pleased to share my experiences. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you, thank you. You're most welcome for today. Let's move on to the next panelist. You're muted, Crispin. Please unmute yourself.
Bonjour, je suis Crispine Nguena. Je suis coordinatrice de l'organisation Action pour la conservation de la nature et le développement communautaire. Nous travaillons sur les questions de droits des jeunes filles et des femmes, plus particulièrement les femmes autochtones, les femmes rurales. Nous travaillons aussi sur les questions de protection de l'environnement, de la conservation et de la restauration du paysage. Nous faisons des plaidoyers au niveau local, national et international. Je crois que nous sommes plus à l'est de la République démocratique du Congo. Je suis contente d'être là et d'écouter les autres jeunes féministes de l'Afrique. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to Crispin. On to our last panelist.
Bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Seyna Boussignay, je suis sociologue et je suis spécialisée sur les questions de développement. Je suis panafricaniste, féministe et je milite pour la liberté d'expression et je travaille sur les questions de développement durable, particulièrement le changement climatique. Je suis africaine de nationalité sénégalaise. Et actuellement, je suis conseillère genre ensemble au Sénégal. C'est un plaisir pour moi d'être ici avec vous. Merci.
Thank you very much for the introduction. We'll just, move on to the next part where I would love for the panelists to, in any format, please tell us about the work that you have been doing so that we are very familiar while we start delving onto the issues. We're very familiar with, how your work has been, what exactly you do, what spaces you occupy, what your experience has been in that format. So anyone who is ready, please jump on.
Caroline, would you repeat it? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I was asking that you could tell us so that we're very aware of your experiences and the experiences that you have had in your work and how they relate also to your lives. We'll generally just want to hear about you and your challenging patriarchy advocacy work.
Okay, so I can take the floor. May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm audible. So to start with the advocacy, as you know, advocacy can be done in multiple ways, including campaigns that you can use using social media campaigns, demonstrations, launching petitions, mobilizing. So it's in a way mobilizing people towards your cause to bring some sort of change. In this regard, I would say mine has two layers. On one hand, I try to engage by providing actual activities. As I said, I'm a graduate of law, so I was providing a number of legal aid assistance to women who were subjected to different violences, rape, assault, different abuse in the family, custody issue, and acid attacks. So I used to provide legal aids. As I mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity to work in Ethiopian Women's Lawyers Association, an association that is mainly organized to assist and support women who are victims of things I have mentioned earlier. And also I have had the opportunity to work in Addis Ababa University Human Rights Center, which was established to support people who could not afford to go to a court of law by themselves. As you know, recently the court fees, the lawyers' fees, I'm sure Caroline knows this, it's very expensive, and for many people, including women, it's not affordable. So what we do is we provide free legal aid to people who cannot afford to go to a court of law by themselves. So I have been doing this for a long period of time, and also in few of the cases, I accompany the women to a court of law. As you know, whenever they sustain such kinds of issues, they feel very traumatized, and they don't know the court knowledge, the court language, and they're unable to express themselves to a court of law. So what I do is I accompany them to a court of law to explain their cases, to tell them what they have to say, and even how they should present their cases to a court of law. So this is what I do on one hand. And regarding the advocacy, what I do is I try to capture their cases, of course, keeping the confidentiality of who they are, where actually that thing happened. I try to create some sort of campaigns in order for the case, to get awareness by the public, as well as for the women to get a proper verdict. And from many cases I have been, advocating. I remember one acid attack case that I was working really hard for people to know about the case, how it happened, the actual damage that the woman sustained. So the case, the perpetrator was her husband, who convicted, who threw the acid on the face of his wife. And so I opened a social media campaign, very large social media campaign. A number of people engaged in that particular campaign, and the guy was convicted for 17 years of imprisonment. And finally, I know it cannot, compensate the damage that the woman has sustained, but in a way, justice has been served. So I have been doing these things. On one hand, through my legal profession, I have been, consulting the women, advising the legal issues, and also drafting different legal documents that are required for them to present their case to a court of law. And on the other hand, campaigning, keeping their identities, for the public to know what has been going on and how it's affecting the women. And yeah, I have been working to things side by side. Yeah, Caroline, over to you. Yeah, this is what I've been doing.
So much. Thank you so much, Berit, for that work. We'll move on to the next panelist. Please briefly just tell us how your work looks like, what you've been doing. Yes, Senabo, I've seen your hand. Please go next.
Thank you. Oh, okay, go ahead. Is Christian going or?
Merci beaucoup. Non, c'est Seynabou. Alors, en tant que féministe, mon engagement, c'est parti de mon engagement très jeune, déjà en tant que panafricaniste, puis défenseur des droits humains et de manière plus spécifique défenseur des droits des femmes, en constatant le déséquilibre des pouvoirs dans la société, l'inégalité et les violences basées sur le genre dont les femmes et les jeunes sont celles qui ont autant que moi qui en souffrent le plus. C'est d'abord lié vraiment à un contexte où j'avais des parents qui étaient déjà engagés, avec une mère agent de développement engagée sur les questions de droits des femmes, et plus tard ma formation de sociologue qui m'a permis d'aller à l'intérieur du pays, dans le Sénégal des profondeurs, avoir une meilleure connaissance des réalités socio-économiques en Afrique et voir aujourd'hui les inéquités et les inégalités auxquelles les femmes font face. Donc ça a d'abord été un combat sur le terrain, à l'université et même avant au lycée à travers ma participation à des réseaux et clubs pour sensibiliser les femmes et les jeunes, autant pour moi, filles, sur des questions qui les concernent, ensuite à l'université de manière plus globale à travers un mouvement panafricaniste créé, mais qui était aussi axé sur les questions de féminisme, particulièrement droit des femmes, mais plus tard à travers les réseaux sociaux pour atteindre plus de personnes. Et pour moi, en fait, défendre l'équité de genre, la justice de genre et la cause des femmes particulièrement, commencer par défendre en fait son propre image et celle que l'on renvoie, puisqu'en réalité, en tant que sociologue, je me suis rendu compte que à travers le discours que l'on promeut, axé sur la responsabilité, l'engagement, l'éthique, les valeurs, le pôle identitaire qui était important en ce temps-là, particulièrement en tant que femme noire. Je me suis basée sur cela pour interpeller et sensibiliser sur des cas vécus que j'ai vus à travers mes missions sur les violences, des exemples de femmes qui se battent et qui s'engagent, et surtout montrer en fait la sensibilisation en fait sur les réalités qui sont vécues par les femmes participation politique. Donc, je me suis engagée dans plusieurs mouvements, particulièrement le mouvement Y en a marre. Je ne sais pas si parmi vous, il y en a qui le connaissent. C'est un mouvement qui, en 2011, quand nous avons eu quand l'ancien président Abdoulaye Wade a voulu vraiment toucher la Constitution pour avoir un troisième mandat, c'est un mouvement de jeunes qui s'est un mouvement contestataire, populiste, qui s'est levé pour se battre contre cela. J'ai été la première femme à mettre en place un club, un esprit en a marre. Ce qu'on appelle un esprit en a marre, c'est un démembrement de ce à l'unité. Ça, et ça m'a permis, quand je me suis rendu compte de ce qui puisse baser les plaidoyers que nous portons, je me suis orientée sur des études qui allaient me permettre d'avoir une meilleure connaissance non seulement du contexte socio-culturel africain, mais particulièrement sénégalais, de notre histoire, mais aussi de tout ce qui est féminisme et justice de genre pour pouvoir mieux porter mon combat, pour pouvoir mieux informer, pour pouvoir mieux sensibiliser et enfin pour pouvoir porter des plaidoyers basés sur des évidences claires et fortes. Donc voilà globalement ce que je fais et aujourd'hui je continue à le faire parce que je me suis rendu compte que l'activisme tout simplement ne suffit pas et que partout où je travaille, ces questions-là soient vraiment au cœur, au centre de l'action que je mène, que ce soit des actions de terrain ou des actions de plaidoyer. Et c'est ce qui m'a mené aujourd'hui à être la conseillère genre et jeune à Oxfam au Sénégal. Pour cette question, c'est
Okay, we'll take it on when she's back. Thank you so much, so Sinabo. We'll move on to Marianne. I can see your hand up.
Thank you so much, and apologies for not having my video on. I'm afraid that while explaining, I might lose my internet, and I don't want to do that. To my level of experience working with SIHA, which SIHA stands for Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa. Working with SIHA, I have mostly what we do and put a lot of effort is in advocacy. We engage diverse group of women delivering series of capacity building workshops, community consultation, participatory sessions, and community outreach awareness to enable young women in target areas to improve their confidence and advocacy skill. Apart from my activities and the work that I do for SIHA in Somalia, as a young feminist who's living in Somalia, I have tried and to integrate and understand my society. And as a young feminist, you will have there is something that you want to today achieve, and when you try, there's always an obstacle. So there is many challenges. Me living in a country whose security is not stable. To start with, first, we hear about women movement, feminist movement, and in Somalia currently, we don't have a movement that is sustainable, but there are feminist movement that's sustainable, but there are individual and feminist. That's something that's there. But apart from that, according to what we carry and what we do for women and girls living in Somalia, and try to advocate for the right cause, like fighting for women's rights, fighting for justice, and improving giving women a peaceful environment. All these things, you will always face some challenges. For me here, my biggest challenges right now is security. In a country whose security is not stable, carrying advocacy work such as leading community awareness on SGBV or any kind of sexual violence against women and girls tend to put my life in danger. For example, let's say, when we are fighting for justice for any survivor or any victim, we always, there is the legal system in Somalia, we use mostly what's called customary law, whereby the elders have to intervene and have to decide on the cases that needs to reach the court. Unfortunately, mostly don't reach the court, and elders just decide and just make the decision on behalf of the survivor. So we try to eradicate such culture, whereby we try to advise the community that the best way to find justice is go to the court, file case, follow up, till we see that the perpetrator is really punished accordingly and justice is served. Mostly that doesn't happen, but when you try to change something that has been practiced for a long time in Somalia, it becomes your identity is being questioned. First of all, I'm a young feminist and then unmarried. People will start questioning your identity before even hearing what message you want to carry on, what changes you want to bring on. So they will say like, feminist is a Western thing, this is not what we want. Do you understand the meaning of feminism and what it does? So when your identity is questioned, and you will be like, you will tend to be afraid, because when a culture, there's a society that believes in their culture strongly, and you try to change some perspective, and you know this is for the good cause, it tries to threaten your security a little bit. So another issue is the social cultural norms. We all know that not only in Somalia, but in any African community, you can understand that the social norm is really growing. So as a feminist, my work in Somalia is not walk in the park. The conservative society, whose attitude is toward protecting the culture, is hard to change the perspective on some issues, such as, for example, let me say, FGM and early marriage. And people with the most authority and respect in society are a segment of society that is particularly attached to this attitude and norms. So it's really hard to really change the social norms. It takes time and energy and effort for one to put through and to bring advocacy and campaign on issues that can really change. There are good cultural norms that we Africans perceive. That's really good, with the kingship, the generosity, respecting the elders, the honors. Such things are good, but there are some bad cultures that we advocate against, and we try to bring something that something that can really replace that, because it has been challenged to women and girls in Somalia, and they have been affected a lot. So in that way, changing the cultural perspective of us community that is deeply rooted with the culture is really hard, but we don't give up. We try hard and keep on advocating, creating community awareness, bringing community together, consulting with them, making them understand these issues. So one other challenge is I'm sorry if I'm taking time, is that when women, another challenge that women, both young and older generation, is not yet unified. As a young feminist, we recognize and honor the work of a feminist who came before us and paved the way for us even be here. But also sometimes we feel excluded from movement because it feels like more experienced with feminists do not believe we have anything to offer since we are younger and less experienced, and not also the difference in age and lived experience growing in different moments in history. This can mean that our priorities are slightly different. As feminists, we are facing challenges to come together despite different level of knowledge and experience. So when you look at the cultural norm, the security, women's not integrated very well, it brings a challenge to advocacy. Advocacy work needs a unified voice. We need to believe in something so that we can achieve the right cause. But if there are obstacles that's there, but I believe that any challenges can come up with solution. I believe I will explain this in my next question. So Caroline, back to you. Very sorry.
Thank you so much, Marianne, and thank you for your work. We'll move on to, I think, the last panelist, Crispin.
Bonjour et bonjour encore une fois, au fait. J'ai lu le travail que font toutes les jeunes féministes que je viens d'écouter tout de suite, que fait les féministes. Et je m'en vais seulement dans cet angle d'idée pour essayer un peu de faire la particularité de l'action que nous faisons en RDC, plus particulièrement au nord et au Sud Kivu. Les zones qu'on connaît que ce sont des endroits plus insécures. Donc, nous essayons de travailler avec des jeunes filles, de femmes, pour leur épanouissement, pour la justice du genre, au fait. Cette lutte a commencé depuis l'université, en tout cas. Et là, on a pu c'était dans des sensibilisations, dans de mobilisation de femmes parce qu'on savait que les femmes sont mieux placées pour défendre leurs droits. Et c'est comme ça qu'il fallait les sensibiliser, il fallait les amener à prendre des engagements, à prendre courage pour agir. Et là, on a été dans un groupe de jeunes étudiantes, en tout cas. On était à l'université, qu'on appelait Congo Mwinda. On a travaillé à l'université, dans plusieurs universités de deux villes, ville de Bukavu et la ville de Goma. Après, on a évolué, on a accompagné des femmes dans le vu les études que je fais, si je fais le droit. Et là, ça m'a donné plus d'atouts en termes de questions liées au droit. Donc, on a accompagné des femmes dans les secteurs miniers pour l'accès équitable aux ressources naturelles parce que dans certaines coutumes, les femmes n'ont pas droit à fréquenter les carrières parce qu'ils estiment que ce n'est pas pour les femmes. Alors, même quand on a ces carrières, on ne peut pas avoir accès à cela parce que c'est interdit. Alors, il fallait accompagner des femmes dans des plaidoyers en ce sens, afin qu'elles aient l'accès équitable à l'exploitation de ressources naturelles. Et aussi, cela nous a accompagnés dans la lutte sur les questions de sécurité foncière, où les femmes aussi sont très marginalisées parce que on dit que la terre, c'est pour les hommes, le pouvoir, la terre, c'est pour les hommes. Alors, on a accompagné des femmes dans des plaidoyers à travers le territoire de ces deux provinces où la lutte n'a pas été facile parce qu'il y a eu suffisamment de défis et qui demandait un peu plus d'énergie comme on ne pouvait pas l'imaginer. Et là, actuellement, depuis un moment, on est sur les questions de justice climatique, justice économique, parce qu'on a vu les femmes rurales, surtout les femmes agricultrices, sont très victimes des effets de changement climatique. Elles ne savent pas comment ça se passe, comment ça se fait, alors qu'il y a des solutions qu'elles peuvent adapter à leurs actions. Et cela a fait en sorte que les femmes puissent être engagées sur les questions du climat et qu'elles puissent proposer des solutions pour amélioration des conditions de femmes dans des zones rurales malgré les effets de changement climatique dont les effets de changement climatique sur lesquels elles font face. Et puis la justice économique, parce que en dépit de faire ces accompagnements-là, ces femmes ont besoin de finances et qui le rend aussi plus vulnérable parce que tu ne peux pas être autonome, dire que je suis autonome, je suis en train de revendiquer mes droits et que l'accès aux finances, l'accès à l'économie devient encore basculer la question de l'égalité des genres. Alors, on a accompagné juridiquement et sociologiquement les femmes qui sont victimes de violences économiques dans les zones rurales. Donc, c'est en gros le travail que nous faisons chaque jour, le plaidoyer, le renforcement de capacité, parce qu'on s'est dit quand une personne est outillée, la personne est capable de revendiquer ses droits. Donc, on s'est dit quand les femmes sont outillées avec des éléments, elles sont capables de revendiquer leurs droits. Et aussi, on les accompagne dans des plaidoyers au niveau des autorités locales, au niveau des autorités nationales, selon que le besoin se présente. C'est en ça que se résume notre travail et nous
Okay, I think, Esther, you have something to say? I think Crispin has disappeared and we have a problem with the interpretation.
Yeah, we wanted to raise that before she continues, but it's okay. We can go on.
Okay, I do think that also Crispin's interpretation is flawed. So please sort that out. We apologize for that. We will move on to the next question so that we can save on time, and we'll have Crispin back when she comes on. So maybe to our panelists, and this really goes to mostly what you're doing, but I hear what Marianne said, and I would really like to echo on that and ask that, we're at a time where there's a lot of funding that has gone to gender work and also a lot of effort that has gone to gender work, but most of it has been geared to fixing or technical fixes and service provision. Not to say that that is not important, it's very important. However, there's need for feminist advocacy repoliticizing, for us to be able to make demands for social, economic, and political transformation. And this is a space that has mostly been neglected. So I would really love to hear from the panelists. What have your challenges been, when it comes to feminist advocacy? What are the capacity strengthening needs that you wish you had that would help you in the awesomely great work that you have been doing? And maybe you can also indulge us on how your work has been affected by COVID-19 and how you think this could be done, or what priorities you think could be rechanneled to feminist advocacy to be able to help your work. So we'll really just jump onto the panelists who are already here. I could start. Zainabu, your hand is up, so we can hear you. I'm not sure whether the interpretation is back, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So let me just, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Should I have to continue in French or in English?
Any that you're comfortable with, Zainabu.
I can't hear you well. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead and speak in any language that you're comfortable in.
Okay.
Either French or English, yeah.
Okay, so we have translation. So, en matière de défis, effectivement, les fonds sont très souvent alloués à des questions de justice de genre, en ne prenant pas en compte en fait cet aspect plus global et plus holistique des principes féministes et du combat féministe qui est plus égalitaire et plus équitable. Les défis que nous vivons, en tout cas en tant que féministes ou que les femmes vivent, moi, se résume à un triptyque de manque de temps, d'un réseau faible et d'autonomie financière. Et cela est basé
I'm sorry to pause you, but I'm noticing that we still do not have interpretation. So I would ask that we hold on to your comment until we're able to sort that out, if you're not comfortable with English.
I can go ahead, Carol.
Yes.
Caroline, to my experience as a young feminist in Somalia, and I'll try to summarize everything that you have asked from COVID-19 to the experience and challenges, even though I've touched on some of the challenges, but still I will just touch on few more other. So my experience as a young feminist in Somalia is a struggle, living and working in a society of male patriarchy assessed through social cultural lens. Men have ultimate power while we are viewed as household guardian. This growing disempowerment is favoring male over female. Currently, as I work, for example, as a CHA area coordinator, I've worked with many strong women who are willing to fight for their rights and they're willing to eradicate bad cultural practices, especially early marriage. That has affected many young girls whose life is being decided on by the society, the elders, and this is culture. So the Quran itself is mentioned that women and girls have the right of life, education, ownership, inheritance of property, as well as the right to give consent to be married, and the right of marriage contract with one's future husband. Unfortunately, due to this strong beliefs in culture, this is not mainly practiced, hence doubles our effort in advocacy work. From human aspect, you will always come across challenges when fighting for the right cause or doing advocacy and campaigns work. You will require a lot of resources and time to achieve these goals. For instance, there are organizations at grassroots level, women-led organization groups that have the idea, have the passion to do this kind of work and do community awareness, but they are missing the resources, and also leaving them feeling like they are being left out by the national community is something that it's and not giving. There is that gap of miscommunication between women at grassroots level and women at national level. So what we do as CHA is bringing together women at grassroots level and national level, linking them and having them have a seat, one sitting whereby they can discuss and have solution to challenges they face. But at the time, there is always gaps, and there's that the linkage is always broken. But we keep on bringing back. As a feminist, when you are passionate about something, you don't give up. You keep on continuing. And being a feminist itself raises a question here in Somalia, where your identity is being questioned. When people don't understand the meaning of feminism or feminist itself, they rather hear you say, I'm a project officer, I'm a social worker. But when it comes to feminists, it's like, are you working for a halal cause? Halal is an Arabic word that means that's not forbidden. So I'm asked such questions comes up. Are you working for the halal? Is what you're doing halal feminism? And I try to question myself and try to answer it and say, what is a halal has to do with fighting for my right as a woman, or advocating for women's right who have to do and has to do with it with the halal. If I'm not accepted as feminist by my own society, this makes it hard for me to be accepted, to accept the changes I'm advocating for. An example of a successful advocacy event that I participated is, as I mentioned before, is the work that I've done with CHA and other organizations that whereby we bring together community consultations, bring together women at diverse groups, delivering series of a capacity building, because not everybody has the capacity to do something, because even myself, I had to learn. I had to learn few things here and there. So amongst the lessons that I've learned is advocacy event is not as inclusive as it should be. They usually occur at national level, which means women from further away communities cannot attend. We need event at national level that will be inclusive for a wider diversity of women feminist movement in Somalia to sit together at once. Even though we don't have that movement, but if we had this understanding and this bridging these gaps, they could have been a sustainable movement. And this is something that could have helped us navigate some of the issues. And I believe that we have done a lot of advocacy work. We have faced a lot of challenges, and we find our ways to try and navigate through these issues. I believe to my next question, I'll go ahead and answer as Caroline asked, ways we can through the next question. Caroline, back to you. I was just talking about the experience and challenges. And about COVID-19, yes, during COVID-19, many organizations say that their works have been put to stop. During COVID-19, gender organizations were the most people who put a lot of effort, because in COVID-19, there was a lot of rape cases. A lot. The rape cases have just risen. So what do you have to do as a feminist, as a gender organization, as a women-led organization? You have to fight for their justice. Do something to at least stop rape issues, sexual violence, and all this. So we had to do a lot of awareness, talk to people, even though there was keeping distance and COVID-19 challenges. I mean, these aspects that we have to look at it that has been placed. But we kept on fighting. And I remember one of the cases that was really serious. One of the survivors, a victim, may she rest in peace, was raped and really killed. So we had to organize a campaign that will fight for her justice. I will include this in my next question, and I will let you know how we came up with ideas and fight for justice till it became successful. Thank you so much. Caroline, back to you.
Thank you, Marian. I mean, the passion and the work that you've been doing, and I completely agree. Most of the times we need to be able to, to be able to agitately or conclusively ask for the things that we need for us to be able to do our work. So thank you for that. Senable, I really apologize for the heat. I'd love for you to go back to what you were telling us about the challenge. I have interpretation.
Yeah, I can go on in English. Okay, so what I was saying is, can you hear me?
Yes, Senable, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I was saying that the challenges for feminists I saw can be summarized in a triple time, network, financial autonomy. Let me just, I hear the translation and okay. So it's based on time, network, financial economy, because of socio-cultural concerns, socio-economic inequalities, gender stereotypes that define the social division of labor and roles and confine women to indoors being, denying them their rights and responsibilities. The second one is building. It's a really big challenge for us to build a strong political movement to carry a feminist ideology that seeks to ensure the equality of women and men in law and in practice. Building also a compelling narrative that a feminist approach offers an inclusive way of thinking that allow for a better understanding of the interaction of various systems of hierarchy, power, and subordination in different social contexts. I just want to share here a testimony. When I let's say when I joined the Yonama movement, it was quite a big issue. Yes, let's say in my family and also my community, because it was a hip hop a movement created by hip hoppers, and it was not like space for women. I was one of the first women who joined this movement to fight against the former president, Abdoulaye Wade, who was about to change the constitution to have a third term. And it was like, she's a woman. And one thing that is really important is the intersectionality. I was a woman, I was young. And for the community, for the society, I didn't have, it was not my role. I didn't have a place in this ecosystem. I can do study, yes, but just for me and maybe to have a job, but not to contest and be an activist, and not a feminist activist. One other feminist challenge is also the lack of spaces for peer-to-peer exchange and sharing. And the last one I want to mention, and we are right now in this context, is for Francophone feminists, the challenge of language. Also, although Francophones or yes, French speakers often make the effort to speak English, the resources available, despite the fact that the two languages, French and English, are the working language for most of our organization and meetings, they are often in English, which is an handicap and exclusive to French speakers. So for me, these are some feminist challenge we face, and also the lack of let's say not, let me just, okay, not networking, yes, but also the lack of study and capacity building, particularly for youth. So for me, these are some challenges we face, and it's also a matter of security for ourselves, for our family, and also for our community to be committed to this struggle, to be committed to this advocacy for a better life for women and generally for human beings.
Thank you so much, Senabo. I really appreciate you sharing your challenges. Crispin, we'll jump back to you because I gather that the interpretation is on. Please go on, and if possible, also mention if there are any needs that you would, outside of the challenges, any needs that you think would be helpful for your work. Crispin?
Ouais, je suis là, mais je n'ai pas bien suivi. Vous pouvez reprendre, s'il vous plaît.
Sure. So the question is really for us to be able to hear what the challenges when it comes to funding, when it comes to support, when it comes to the feminist advocacy work that you do. What are the personal challenges and professional challenges that you have encountered on feminist advocacy, and what are the possible capacity needs that you would think with the support of those, then you'd be able to do your work seamlessly.
D'accord, merci. Je ne vais pas allumer les caméras parce que je vais économiser la connexion. Au fait, s'il faut parler de défis, en tout cas, je vais dire les jeunes féministes sont en ligne de défense, mais elles ont assez de défis pour faire efficacement le travail. Donc, je m'avais parlé particulièrement de l'expérience que moi, personnellement, j'ai. En termes de défis, c'est que vous savez très bien que l'accès à l'éducation, c'est un problème et, pour les jeunes filles en Afrique, particulièrement dans des zones où nous travaillons, surtout des zones rurales. Alors, cette question s'essuie même dans la lutte parce qu'il y a des connaissances que les filles sont un peu limitées afin d'avoir les résultats voulus en termes d'intervention. Donc, le défi de renforcement des capacités, de l'éducation sont les défis face auxquels les jeunes féministes sont heurtées chaque jour, particulièrement moi parce qu'il y a des connaissances que j'aimerais bien avoir, mais dans les contextes où nous évoluons, ce n'est pas accessible et ça fait en sorte que ça handicape le travail que nous voulons faire. Il y a aussi l'accès à la connexion, en fait, la connexion stable. C'est un sérieux problème et cela fait en sorte que le travail que nous puissions faire puisse avoir des soucis parce que actuellement, avec la nouvelle technologie, ça ouvre des opportunités un peu élargies. Quand on n'a pas l'accès à cette connexion, ou bien même en ayant accès à cela, ce n'est pas une très bonne connexion et avec les coûts élevés, ça fait en sorte que le travail que nous pouvons faire ait des problèmes. Et tout cela s'englobe sur la question d'accès au financement. Les financements sont un peu, en fait, les critères de sélection sont un peu musclés, dont les jeunes féministes n'arrivent pas, particulièrement moi en tout cas, n'arrivent pas à décrocher. Donc, ce sont des défis face à lesquels nous faisons face et ce qui fait en sorte que le travail que nous faisons ait des soucis, comme l'a dit Seynabou dans ses interventions, c'est que on sent aussi, nous, les jeunes féministes francophones se sentent un peu écartés, si ce n'est pas écartés ou moins outillés en termes de la langue, parce que tout ce qui est forum international, tout ce qui est des documents intéressants sont en anglais et que nous, les francophones, nous sommes coincés pour y arriver. Je crois même qu'il y a une session où j'ai été victime plusieurs fois parce qu'on manquait l'interprète et je pouvais suivre des fois des choses il y a une partie où je comprends, l'autre que je ne comprends pas. Donc, ce sont ces genres de défis auxquels je fais face et qui fait en sorte que le travail que nous faisons n'arrive pas à avoir les résultats vraiment qu'on veut, mais que nous comptons à l'accompagnement de tout le monde afin que nous arrivons à faire de la justice du genre une réalité dans notre zone. Merci.
Thank you so much, Crispin, for that information. I will ask this question and then we'll start with Berit, really, because I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to tie the challenges which I'm hearing and the work that you're doing and the spaces that you're in. And I'm asking myself, there's been a whole conversation, and it was very loud in the last CSW, last year's CSW, where a group of, not even a group really, a lot of feminists and particularly young feminists are having conversations about the exclusion of international processes in relation to their lived experiences. And there was actually further argument on deliberate exclusion of young feminists from these spaces. So my question today, and I wonder, how is it that these processes, how do you think that these processes could be a lot more inclusive? Do you currently think that they speak to your reality? Do you think that they help the spaces that you're in? And if you'd want to participate in them, how would you want them to be able to speak to your work? If that is something we can hear, we can start with you.
May I, Caroline?
Yes, please go.
Okay, so thank you very much. I share all the challenges that my colleagues have mentioned. Of course, more or less, you know, we operate in a similar environment, and the challenges we face are in a way similar. But so I will be touching some of the challenges that my colleagues have raised. Yeah, let me focus on some of the areas that I believe are not touched. So the first challenge, as you've been saying, is that it's underfunded due to the prioritization of other areas, and it has to do with maybe it is something for the donors to reconsider, given the importance of the advocacy work and its impact on the ground. And you know, if we would have done a lot on the advocacy, we would have reduced the cost on the other aspects. So reprioritization is really important in that regard, and they have to reconsider the funding issue. And the other important challenge, I would say, has to be addressed is the political polarization. Whether we like it or not, we operate in some sort of, you know, politics, and that has a bearing and significant impact on what we do. You know, in some of the areas there as well, there are, you know, different issues that women and girls are facing, and you can't talk about those issues being loud, you know, due to fear of persecution. So I don't know how that can be addressed, but political polarization, political challenge is one of the challenge that we face, not to actually address the matter from its roots. And the other one I would say is, although there are, you know, resources, there is this fragmentation of resources. Of course, we all run, you know, for a same or for a similar objective, but it's you know, it's very fragmented. No one knows who is doing what. You know, there has to be some sort of platform, or I would say actors mapping, to know who is doing what, where you can collaborate, and what resources are available with the other people, and you can seek what you don't have. So there is that fragmentation of resource, and our efforts are also fragmented, and that resulted in lack of a proper coordination. And the other challenge I see is lack of scientific need assessment. That's, you know, there is need, of course, but we have to support that need in evidence. There has to be a well-researched some sort of document that shows the actual need on the ground. I personally believe that we assume the problem and we provide solutions based on our assumptions, which can't really solve the issue on the ground. So I strongly believe on the necessity of assessment that's backed by science or whatever. So it has to be researched. We have to know the actual. Of course, there are issues that I feel on my surrounding, but it has to be, you know, researched. And so this has to do with lack of understanding the need. And also there is, of course, capacity in terms of knowledge gap. There is a knowledge gap. I will come on this issue when I talk about the needs, because if I say there is a lack of knowledge, it has to be supported in different, you know, capacity building strengths and different ways. I will touch upon that when I come to the needs. So, and the other challenge I feel is, you know, lack of contextualization. You know, I personally believe that, of course, there are a number of cultures, practices that dehumanize women and girls, but at the same time, in all of our cultures, there are practices, there are cultures that in a way empower and give space for women and girls. So we have to look back for those cultures. You know, that way we will be attached to our society and they understand the language we speak, the language we talk in. So we have to look back to our practices, cultures that empower and give us a space. That way we will be keep on attached to our system. And having said this, coming back to COVID and its effects, I would say life before COVID and after is never the same, and it will never be. It had a devastating effect all over the world, and particularly on women. I remember receiving a number of reports saying that the domestic violence on women have increased significantly during COVID time. That's because the women, were forced to stay at home, and the perpetrators had enough ample time to do whatever they want to do. So it was a significant moment where we see the increasement of different cases being reported that women and girls were victims of a domestic violence. So it will never be the same, and it's never the same. And coming back to the need, as I said, there is a knowledge gap. Of course, things are evolving very much. We need to update ourselves with the, keep with the change. So I think we need up-to-date trainings, capacity buildings on how to do advocacy, keeping the momentum. That's my suggestion. And we've been doing a number of online trainings to update ourselves, but I suggest for in-person trainings. It's different when you do a virtual thing. In a way, it has a limitation. So I suggest for in-person trainings on advocacy, on how you do it, what are the technical issues that are involved, what you have to consider. And I think additional trainings are also important on funding, how you secure funding, how you utilize it, how you report. So technical matters, training on technical matters is also important. Capacity building on monitoring, evaluation. How do you monitor? How do you evaluate your, for instance, I personally do a number of advocacies, but how do I evaluate? I don't know. How do I evaluate my impact on the ground? I don't know. So I need to know these technical matters, and I'm sure my colleagues also would want to know more about this. Tools to assess the need on the ground, how to develop action plans. And yeah, these are on the need areas. I will hand over to you, but I will come back to reflect on who should do what. Thank you. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you. But before you go and you come back to reflect on who does what, I would love for you to, to tie these to the international processes. One case being the CSW process, how do you think it speaks to your work? And do you really think that it relates to the work that you do, or it helps fit into the work that you do, or it provides a platform for you, or a platform for amplification of the work that you do? How helpful are the processes?
Oh, it was really, the first, it gave me a platform, a platform where I can share my experiences, and also a platform to learn from others. And it was a milestone. I have had the opportunity to meet a number of colleagues who were working in different segments of the continent, and it was really important platform. It gave me a platform. And also I met the wonderful women who are studying for others, as well as advocating for a cause to bring some sort of change. That's difficult, but having the platform by itself was very overwhelming. So I learned a lot. I shared my experience. So the platform was something I needed the most, and it was overwhelming. And I would like to extend my gratitude for those who created this platform. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Brit, for your conversation. I would love to, I'll just speak randomly. I'd love Sinabu to speak to these, the international regional processes, particularly those on gender and the relevant bodies on that, and how you think the same can be crafted to reflect to the lived realities or the country realities that you have when it comes to feminist advocacy. Sinabo, you can go.
Merci beaucoup. Je voulais revenir rapidement, excusez-moi, je voulais revenir rapidement juste sur un défi qui est important, en tout cas dans mon contexte, c'est la question de la religion. Je suis de confession musulmane, et pratiquement, très souvent, quand on est engagé sur les questions de féminisme, d'égalité, d'équité de genre, on nous oppose la religion. Et heureusement, moi, j'ai eu la chance très tôt d'apprendre ma religion et de connaître la place de la femme dans cette religion. Donc, ma compréhension de ma condition de femme, mais d'homme grand H avant tout, non seulement m'a été apprise, mais j'ai moi-même, en fait, eu à faire mon propre chemin dans cette voie. Et personnellement, j'ai toujours eu les arguments qu'il faut, qui sont opposables et tirés de la religion pour défendre non seulement mon féminisme, mais le combat porté sur l'équité de genre. Et c'est important, je voulais juste revenir sur cette question, pour nous autres féministes particulièrement jeunes, non seulement de connaître notre histoire africaine, l'Afrique noire, quelles sont nos traditions, quelle a été la place de la femme dans cette tradition, quels sont les combats que les femmes ont toujours portés depuis le 14e siècle, 15e siècle, les femmes qui se sont battues pour les questions d'équité de genre, et aussi qu'est-ce que la religion nous donne comme droit et responsabilité et pouvoir répondre à cela. Maintenant, en ce qui concerne la question posée, j'aimerais juste revenir sur une chose aussi qui est importante, et que c'est certes la COVID a exacerbé les inégalités de genre et violences basées sur le genre, mais je pense qu'elle a été une opportunité, en tout cas pour les mouvements féministes et les jeunes en particulier en matière de participation. Non seulement elle a démocratisé la prise de parole aux grands événements, parce que c'est moins de budget, les gens peuvent participer de là où ils sont, et c'est moins de problèmes de leadership et de positionnement, parce que très souvent, ça pose beaucoup de problèmes, la participation des jeunes femmes féministes particulièrement, à cause des problèmes de positionnement et de leadership. Et aussi, il y a un avantage que les jeunes ont aujourd'hui, c'est vraiment une plus grande maîtrise du numérique, bien qu'il y ait un défi de connectivité pour nos pays. En ce qui concerne la participation à des entités régionales, à des instances plus larges, pour moi, il est important de renforcer d'abord les capacités organisationnelles, techniques et financières, non seulement des organisations, des mouvements de féministes et de femmes, mais aussi des activistes en tant que tels, renforcer leur accès à l'information. Parce qu'avant de pouvoir participer, il faut vraiment que l'on sache qu'est-ce qui se passe, où et comment y accéder. Renforcer leur capacité de communication et de mobilisation, non seulement pour qu'elles puissent s'exprimer, mais aussi pour qu'elles puissent se faire un réseau et voir comment porter leur combat. Restaurer et travailler à maintenir des contextes sociaux pacifiques, ça c'est beaucoup plus pour des organisations plus grandes que sont par exemple l'ONU, les États, pour permettre, parce que ce n'est que dans un État ou bien dans des environnements pacifiés que nous pouvons évoluer. Parce que quand il y a crise, quand il y a guerre, c'est encore les femmes, les enfants qui sont ceux qui en souffrent le plus. La mise en réseau et la consolidation des réseaux existants, ou encore la création de ces réseaux-là, que ce soit sud-sud ou sud-nord, la facilitation de la participation des jeunes féministes aux différents espaces de réflexion, de travail, de plaidoyer, en respect bien sûr aux principes féministes, rien pour nous sans nous, à la facilitation vraiment de l'accès au financement, particulièrement pour les petits mouvements et organisations, parce que très souvent, c'est tellement lourd sur le plan administratif, sur le plan procédurier, que les organisations qui sont plus jeunes ne peuvent pas vraiment avoir accès à des financements conséquents pour mettre en œuvre cette justice de genre, cette équité de genre. Parce que tout cela est important pour l'intégration, la prise en compte systématique et systémique de l'équité de genre dans tout ce qui est politique et dans tout ce qui est action, non seulement projet, action de terrain, mais aussi plaidoyer. Il est important aussi pour une meilleure intégration vraiment de tout ce qui est équité de genre, principe féministe, de garantir le respect des droits humains, particulièrement les droits des femmes dans les politiques et dans l'espace civique. nous qui sommes dans la bande du Sahel particulièrement, cette réduction de l'espace civique se fait sentir drastiquement et c'est encore un point, un défi pour mener vraiment le combat féministe que nous voulons et l'intégration de la justice de genre dans tout ce qui est question de problématiques de développement ou politique. L'intégration de la justice féministe et de la justice de genre, comme je le disais tantôt, dans les débats, mécanismes de gouvernance et documents de politique. Et cela se fait par une synergie d'action. Cela se fait d'abord à travers les principes d'inclusion, de non-discrimination et d'intersectionnalité. Cela veut tout simplement dire qu'il faut inclure toutes les couches de la société, que l'État travaille avec les organisations de la société civile, avec le secteur privé, avec les communautés, et que l'État travaille avec toutes les couches, que ce soit les hommes, les femmes, les jeunes, les personnes vivant avec un handicap, et que même au sein en fait de toutes ces couches-là, que l'on regarde les questions de ruralité, d'urbanité, que l'on voit les questions différences, les inégalités socio-économiques et que vraiment toutes les intersectionnalités que nous avons puissent être intégrées et que disons, tous les défis, tous les besoins, tous les droits de ces différentes couches puissent être intégrés. Enfin, garantir la sécurité des défenseurs des droits humains, particulièrement les défenseurs des droits des femmes, les féministes qui sont agressés, non seulement physiquement, mais aussi qui subissent un harcèlement sur le numérique qui ne dit pas son nom. Enfin, créer vraiment des plateformes qui sont interactives, inclusives, multilingues et qui permettent de publier les documents de recherche et d'orientation des principes féministes et des actions et documents en faveur de l'équilibre des pouvoirs. Parce qu'en réalité, c'est une question de pouvoir. Tout cela, la participation politique des femmes, leur autonomie financière, leur accès égal disons, aux ressources naturelles et minières. Et donc, c'est pour moi ces quelques points-là qui peuvent vraiment nous permettre non seulement une meilleure intégration, une intégration systémique des questions de justice de genre, autant dans les politiques que dans les pratiques, parce qu'il va falloir bien sûr une sensibilisation qui ne se fera que, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, par un renforcement de capacité des femmes, mais aussi des hommes pour inclure les masculinités positives et l'accès à l'information, la vraie et la bonne information pour tous, afin que chacun puisse savoir en fait qu'est-ce que cette approche-là peut nous apporter ou pas.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Nav, for that information. And yes, for the call, because they are pretty valid and urgent. I would go to the last two panelists, and I will ask that you be brief because you're almost running out of time. And I will ask the participants, if you do have any question, any comment that you think should be heard, please put it in the Q&A, or put it in the Q&A and we'll be able to respond to that. Marian, we'll move to you. Please try and be brief.
Did you give the platform to me or that was Christine? Is it me?
It's you. Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, I want to be brief because mostly have been mentioned by my colleagues, and it's really important what they have said. On answering your question on international region and how we can have this advocacy and craft it well. And I think one of the things that we have to think is and encourage is to encourage the international regions to encourage the work of locally anchored organizations and invest in efforts to foster inclusion and diversity within or between women groups and networks. I'm sorry if I'm speaking fast. I'm told I'm speaking fast. One other thing is also to support women to organize around common interests and problems and facilitate connection among different organizations in support of women, political women agenda or women empowerment. And I know we have spoken more on the social cultural norms, whereby it's not only one country that has these issues, but when you look at the most African countries, we share this as a common challenge. And I will say that when coming up with an advocacy, or you want to craft an advocacy, is that you have to understand the context of a certain country, not only context, but also understand the social cultural norms, their political and issues and all that. Once you have that in mind, you will know ways you can diverge or and understand the community or the people you're communicating with, and sharing these messages with. So when it comes, for instance, in Somalia, it's really easy for one to really, it's not, I can't say it's easy, but it's something we are trying, and we have tried while I was working in CIA, I've really tried to do these changes and to bring up, like in Somalia, the role of elders. Using the role of elders is something that really has worked for me. You know that elders in Somalia, they are the ones, they are the negotiator, mediator, counselors, and once you collaborate, this gives you a leverage to collaborate with elders. Once you collaborate with them, make them understand your agenda, what are you advocating for, bring this to them, and not only at local level, national level, regional level, and even global level. Let the clan elders, let the elders see what changes other countries have done. Not only we feminists, we people working in gender sectors, join these national platforms and get to hear the solutions and the other countries came up with. So using the role of elders in, and because I believe that Somalia demonstrates a high level of adaptability, just like any other country. We are all human beings. We have this aspect that, but we know that we can really adapt to any changes if we accept, and that is for you to make them understand what you're advocating for. So for the clan elders, and I believe that coming up when bringing them on board and talking to them, negotiating with them will help us, because it's really helped us today. Almost many clan elders have really accepted women political participation. In today's election, they are the people who are supporting women political participation. And this is through so many advocacy and dialogues and communications that we have put through there. This is just educating them on what you're doing. It's not forcing people to get information, but make them understand what you're advocating for. They have seen what a woman leader can do than a man. So they have seen and they have recognized and they're willing to support. So one thing is use what you have and then bring it. As we feminists, we will not want only to join only local and national regional platforms. We would like to join regional, and global platforms, whereby we get to hear a problem another country have solved. Maybe it can help me solve the challenge I'm facing in my country. So that's something else. And Caroline, one important thing, what we are missing is a concrete data. There is lack of data when it comes to gender issues. We hear rape cases. Do you have exact data? Every organization keeps their own data, but do we have this centralized data that is really informative, that we can share? Even by when you are doing fundraising or asking for resources, they require certain concrete data that they want to see, and they want to know that there is a need here, and maybe the international donors, they're willing to accept and maybe intervene and do something about it. Thank you, Caroline. I took most of the time. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Marion. I mean, I'm also thinking while you're talking, we don't need to be in these spaces just to hear what they're doing, but we also need to bring our thoughts on what we think should be done. Having said that, Crispin, would you please speak to the issue as briefly as you can?
des accompagnements de près pour que le travail que nous sommes en train de faire puisse avoir un peu plus d'impact et que nous arrivons à avoir la justice du genre. Donc, c'est un appel pour nous auprès des différentes personnes, des différents bailleurs, afin d'accompagner la Ligue de jeunes féministes, d'accompagner le travail que ces dans des communautés, afin d'avoir l'impact et d'accompagner les travail, afin d'avoir la justice de genre dans les communautés de base en tout cas. Et cela constituera la force que ces jeunes féministes auront chaque jour dans leurs interventions suite à ces accompagnements-là en termes de renforcement des capacités, en termes d'accès au financement et tout ce qui va avec. Donc, c'est en ce sens que je suis en train de faire cet appel d'accompagnement pour les jeunes féministes pour un travail efficace auprès des communautés. Merci.
Thank you so much. Crispin, before you go, I would love to step back from you because we really have to finish. I know we have so much to say, and this is not a conversation we can have in one virtual session. We will keep having it. But in the meantime, just as a wind up, I would love for you to state in a sentence, all the panelists in a sentence, a single sentence, what you think or what your clarion call is to the donors, the international bodies, regional bodies, and even member states, even your own countries. What is it that you think you'd want in one sentence, or what you think you'd tell them for you to be able to have an easier space for doing your work, or even, for the space to be made better for you to not have to do all that you have to do? Crispin, I would love to start with you.
Le message reste cet appel-là à l'accompagnement des jeunes féministes, aux bailleurs de faciliter l'accès au financement pour les jeunes, parce qu'elles restent ces jeunes filles près de la société, en train de l'idée tout près de la communauté, donc au premier rang de la liste. Donc, c'est l'appel à l'assouplement de financement, mais aussi de renforcer les coalitions, des forums de jeunes féministes qui existent, et si ça n'existait pas dans certaines zones, qu'une création de ces zones soit faite, mais surtout aussi qu'on aide les jeunes féministes à avoir accès un peu plus au renforcement des capacités pour leur autonomisation, pour leur épanouissement, bref.
Thank you so much for that call. Let's move on to you, Marian. Your single sentence on a call to donors, member states, international bodies.
A single sentence to a call to donors and international communities is that one thing that we all talk about resources, right? As a feminist organization or women-led organization, let's not talk about the national or international organization. Let's talk about grassroots level. Are they recognized? Recognize them. Have these and projects and interventions at local level, not only at national level. Yes, we have these meetings. When coming up with a policy, it's always top down, which is really bad. It should be from bottom up. People at grassroots level have much information than people at the top level. So whenever they are drafting something, coming up with a policy, law, or drafting any kind of important document that is really women, protecting women's issue, or talking about gender, they should always think about the women at grassroots level, local level, including them in their meetings when making decisions in their platforms. And also they should be building the local grassroots women, their capacity, and then link them to the national level. In that way, we can bridge this gap that is missing from the women and come up with a women, maybe even have a Somalia to have a sustainable women movement, because now there is not that, there is no movement because of that link that gap that's not bridged. So I believe that the donors and the international communities, they should finance the local women at grassroots level, young feminist groups. They don't just assume them, they're just small organizations. They have an agenda that they want to put through, but this agenda, they are not being listened by our own society. So donors also should not ignore the international community. Let me not go that way, but give me one quote that I'm going to end with, and I'm going to read. They say that you cannot reach your goal or destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. Some people will appreciate for the achievement you make and praise you for the little effort. There will be yet another bundle of people who will never miss a chance to criticize you. So as a young feminist, let's go ahead and have this courage. Let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marian. We can really see the courage. I'll move on to Sinabu and then lastly to Berit. Sinabu, can you hear me?
Oui, merci beaucoup. Alors, donc, pour moi, rapidement, c'est d'abord vraiment de faciliter la disponibilité des ressources, que ce soit techniques et financières, pour les organisations féministes. C'est faciliter l'accès à des plateformes de recherche et de production de connaissances pour renforcer leurs connaissances sur les questions de féminisme et de justice de genre. C'est la création ou bien la facilitation de plus de plateformes et espaces de réseau pour des échanges, partages, renforcement mutuel, la mutualisation des bonnes pratiques et des leçons apprises, mais aussi et surtout l'apprentissage de contextes différents où les gens sont en train de mener leur féminisme. C'est de financer, et ça c'est très important, vraiment, des recherches qui sont menées pour, mais aussi par les féministes pour porter des plaidoyers forts qui sont basés sur des évidences et pour disposer en fait de données pour porter ces plaidoyers et pour pouvoir répondre aux besoins et aux défis qui sont relevés sur le terrain, mais aussi en matière de politique. C'est aussi faciliter l'accès à des formations, que ce soit sur le plaidoyer, sur le féminisme, sur la justice de genre et d'autres compétences techniques pour mener des projets et avoir les aptitudes pour influencer, parce que c'est important que l'on soit conscient qu'en fait que le féminisme, c'est vraiment politique et que c'est important que ça soit pris en compte dans les politiques et dans les pratiques. Faciliter la participation des jeunes et féministes aux différents espaces de réflexion, que ce soit local, régional, international, les espaces de réflexion, de travail et de plaidoyer. C'est aussi important vraiment de faciliter des rencontres avec les pairs pour échanger, discuter. C'est important particulièrement pour les pays et les organisations des Nations Unies de garantir le respect des droits humains et la pacification de nos espaces pour que les actions puissent se mener de manière vraiment souple. Et enfin, c'est vraiment plus d'inclusion, plus d'inclusion, plus d'inclusion, que ce soit sur les questions de langue, que ce soit sur les questions de statut, que ce soit sur les questions de rôle ou que ce soit social ou économique, que toutes les couches vraiment qui sont engagées dans ce combat puissent se retrouver pour une prise en compte globale, holistique, et que les décisions qui vont être prises puissent vraiment prendre en compte toutes ces couches-là et les impacter voilà, de manière différente.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, we'll have Berit. Please tell us in a sentence, because we've run out of time, what your call is.
Hi, it's audible. Can you hear me? Oh, thank you very much. It was amazing session. I myself learned a lot, and I would like to say thank you very much. Finally, who should do what? I would like to start with government or member states. They have to create an enabling environment through legislations, through institutions. They have to create a favorable environment within which we can operate meaningfully. Donors, agencies, and different stakeholders. Mapping actors is very important. We have to know who is doing what, sufficient funding, education, capacity building, and after funding, it has to be flexible. If it's stringent, it's hampering the work we're doing. So this is it on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I mean, really, this has been fantastic. And thank you for sharing with you all your challenges. We really, really appreciate that. And we hope to be able to amplify your voices sufficiently for you to be able to do your work. And if so, at most, I pray for a day that we do not have to do the work that we do, and we can all rest easy knowing that we have everything sorted by the relevant bodies. That said, I also want to thank the panelists. Thank you for your contribution in the chat. Thank you for your comments. We look forward to having more of these conversations, and we look forward to, being able to see how well we can be in solidarity with the different countries and help in the causes that you are championing for. That said, I say goodbye. I bid you goodbye and hope to see you in the next sessions that we have. Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.